we're going to be going over the Studio A and AICAIE. Let's go through the walkthrough on how to turn it on and kind of the basic functions of the Studio. So first what we'll want to do is we'll want to go into the back computer room and turn on the computer. Alright, so up here what we have is we have our main power switch. We have the A16, which controls all the monitor systems, which are these guys right here. We also have our controllers that go out to the different Ethernet ports around the place. We have our lake processor here. We have our atomic clock, which controls the timing for the whole studio. You have your I/O interface here, and then also the MADI interface, which connects the board to the computer. This connects the A to D conversion here, and then you have your tower. You have your sync I/O or sync HD. We have another power supply down here. We have our hard drives that are firewired in, and then we've got a control unit for our TC electronics, and then down here is our power adapters. So we're going to want to turn on the computer. And our studio has a small glitch in it, so what we're going to want to do is we want to turn off the MADI so it resyncs this to this and this. We'll stay on 44.1 because we're not doing anything fancy today. Basically on the back here you have a couple of things. So we've got our monitor mixes here. We've got our processing lake processor, which controls the Atom speakers in there. We've got our clock, and you see a bunch of BNCs in there that will then send out to the different various audio components to tell them to all talk at the same time. Next we have our MADI, and this takes the back of the HD X or HD native card and allows it to then talk to the audio. In short, you've got fiber between it and the I/O controller, and then you've got a Sync HD, which controls the Pro Tools side of stuff. We've got our iLock back here. We've got a router that we set up for so we can get this computer on the network, and I think it also controls, yeah, we also added it into the lake controller, which is basically just a pass-through switch and allows us to control the lake controller if we ever need to retune it from inside the studio, and I'll show you how that all works. And then back here we've got our Ethernet connection that then comes into the router. Router is also plugged into the board, the computer, and that lake controller, so it can all be seen on the same network. Alrighty, so we got everything fired up in there. We're going to bypass some of the equipment because we don't need that right this second. Alright, and once you're in here, you have the board and you have the computer. Alright, and what we're going to first want to do is launch Pro Tools. And we're currently running Pro Tools 10.3.9 and Pro Tools 11.2.1. And that should cover pretty much up to date at this point. Alright, if you're not aware of this board actually has an analog and a digital mode on it. So to get into the two modes, you're going to use this button, this up and down arrow button. Currently we're in the DAW mode, which is the digital mode, and the analog mode, which allows you to get audio into the studio to record it. For playback, we're basically going to stay in the digital side of stuff and not so much in the analog side of stuff. Alright, so our sample rate, we're going to want to change that to 44.1. We'll create a brand new session, and I'm down for easy, so 1, 2, 3, 4 is our numbers, and we've got that going. First thing we want to do is we want to check and make sure the playback engine's set up correctly. And it's bringing up Pro Tools Aggregate, which we don't want. We want the HDX. Selecting this playback, yes. Basically, we're going to want to select all of the default options to get us into where we're going. So Pro Tools will close out, and we'll have to relaunch it. Since we already created a session, we can actually open up a session. 1, 2, 3, 4, and open. And no, we don't want to use the Pro Tools Aggregate as the playback option. And no, we don't want to do that. So we've checked our playback engine, which should be on HDX, and that's fine. We're then going to want to go into setup and IOs and verify our IO settings are here. And like Studio B, we also have a setting already set up for this, so we can import if we want. Do you want to delete unused paths? Yes. We'll want to check our inputs, that they look pretty much the same. It should be a downward staircase. And outputs, downward staircase. It seems like that one didn't load right, so reopen this one. Huh. Yep, sure enough. Import 4.1. Yeah. 4.1. Open. Yes. There we go. That looks right. So we're looking for. We can make that active. Dyne Audio, Atom Stereo, all the way down. Hit OK, and you should be into a session at this moment. So Pro Tools, because we're not going over anything new, Command Shift N will get you a option to create a new track. And we're just going to go with a mono track, create. And as you can see, it brought up one of the faders at the very end down there. If we wanted to create more, let's go 23 more. It'll bring up all of the faders. Bring up all of the faders. Looks like some of these are still sticking. So now that we have our audio in, we'll want to bring in some tracks. So Apple Shift I will bring you to the import menu. And just to make this easy, I'm just going to bring in a track. We'll hit convert here, hit done. Ask you where you want to save your audio files. It'll process them. New track. Let's see, we're on 25, so we don't need all of these tracks. Do the old-fashioned way. Delete. And then that should move our track up to number 2. So now if we hit play, we should have levels down here now starting to play, which is correct. Now, to get that audio out, you're going to want to set up this area right here for playback. So, EXTA and then DA is what we're looking for. Our speaker setups is anything off right now goes to the Dyne Audios, which is this controller here. Let's wake those guys up. And they look like they're ready. And if we bring them up here, you have your level raiser. Most of the time that's usually sitting underneath the board here for accessibility and not bumping it and killing it. We ended up sticking it up there to make it easier. So now if we take this off, we're going to want to hit EXTA, Atom Stereo. That should be screaming out of that. Oh, that's weird. Somebody turned that down too far. Alright, so now if we switch back over, we should hear it. Yeah, we do. Awesome. So, some issue was with this right here and setting up whatever your level was. So if you actually don't have a level set up correctly, which I think it was set to that, it won't actually affect anything. So you'll want to make sure that these are turned off. Explains it. Somebody left it on instead of zeroing out the board and going back to what it should have been. Okay, so what we want to look at is two things. This section of the board, every single one of these faders is the same thing. So you have 24 faders that are all the same routing, same panning, same options, same. So if you can get one of these down, the other 24 are super easy. We'll go over this section more in the analog side when I get to that. The big thing we want to look at is panning. So we have the ability to actually pan, and you can pan left or you can pan right in this one. Let's see, did we? Yeah, we did. So we have hard left, hard right, or sorry, hard left there, hard right there, and if we hit play, and this may not come out on here, but it does pan. And that's just for functionality stuff. It's not a big issue here. We have two speaker setups in here. We have the 5.1s and then we have the Atoms. The 5.1s are the Dynaudios, which are in the corners back there, and the Atom speakers are back there, and they also have two adjacent subs with the Atoms. With the Dynaudios, they also have a sub which is right in the center. For the Dynaudios, everything's controlled from this guy right here. For the Atoms, everything's controlled from the board here. The Dynaudios also have a master volume control here. So this is kind of your solo select. You can select each speaker, turn them all off, or you can turn them on. You also have the volume knob here. 80% on this is actually unity here. All the way up is actually plus 12 dB. So you could possibly get some distortion in that by overloading those speakers. 80% is where I like to leave it. Makes it easy. The Atoms controls are here. There's also some controls on the front and some controls on the backs, either of the subs or the mains. We don't touch them. We don't have to use them. That late controller that I showed you in the back actually controls the EQ and the processing for those speakers, and they were just retuned recently too, so we'll see how they sound today. Few things we want to go over. There is a stereo mix level adjustment. This will be for the analog side as opposed to the digital side. It shouldn't affect anything. Yeah, it doesn't affect anything on the digital side, which is what we're playing out of today. If you want to listen to the Atoms, you switch it over to Mini A, and you hit play, and it gives us sound here. We have patching in here, which allows you to go to these outboard audio gears, and these all use TT cables here. You have your channel inputs, which go into the board. You have your mic lines, which come out of the different patch panels around the studio. We have different things to like the ADL, which is outboard gear. You also have the 737 lines, which go over to that card over there. ADL mic ends, ADL line ends. You have the Millennia inputs, which also go to that side card over there. Mic ends, channel outputs. You have monitor inputs. You've also got stuff to go out to the different racks here. You've got the ability to send Canopus outputs over video settings here. Whether you want to do a secondary monitor or you want to do a display of what's coming out of the Canopus, which is actually just another way of plugging in the computer monitor back there. You've also got a switcher scaler down here, which controls the HD TV. So we have a couple of options in there. So it should bring up exactly what's on the monitor, allowing more students to see what's going on the instructor machine. You also have the option to view cameras that are in the studio. It might take me a second to find one. Input 3, I believe, is one. Maybe not. There we go. We have the ability to shoot what's going on in this room, and that controls the camera out in that area. Back to the computer here. Ta-da! That's usually what the instructors will use around here. You've got an 11 rack. You've got some more side cart stuff. You've got tie lines that are right in the studio. And I think that is the gist of this studio. There's not too much we actually get into. I'm going to go grab a microphone and at least show you basic troubleshooting. Something we do here is we color coordinate all of our audio cables so we know which studio it actually came out of. For example, this one has green XLR cables. And for our sake, we're just going to go with a simple mic, an SM57. This is how we keep most of the cables are here. You have some accessories back here, so like pop filters, shock mounts, drumsticks, more drumsticks, other accessories that go to the items. Then we have all of our microphones or input devices here. We've got some headphones here. For simplicity, if we plug into one, control room panel tie lines 1 through 12. So we're going to go there, and then we're going to go into our channel inputs. 1 there. So now we've got an analog device actually plugged into the studio. This is where the analog side of this board comes up, and so basically you have two different boards. You have the digital side, which just controls the digital side, and then you've got the analog side, which controls the analog side. So what we're going to want to do is first we're going to want to set our gain on this, and we're going to want somebody to talk into this. We'll try and do this all at the same time, given I have enough cord. Check, 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 which is not there. And what you can do is you can actually arm this channel, and it should give you a setting here. Let's see, we're going to go into add control room panel, lines 1 through 12. I remember now what the issue was. The issue was we didn't switch this over to a mic line instead of a input. So to select all, you're going to double click these, and then we can go and slide through, and you'll see it kind of run across there. And we want one selected. So we've got it selected. We're going to switch this over to mic, and we should have sound now, which we do. Check, check, testing 1, 2, 3, check, check, check. And we'll bring up the gain just a little bit here. Check, 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 testing 1, 2, 3. And to get it out into the speakers here, you're going to want to assign it to mix A. You'll see it select mix A there. Check, check, check. 1, 2. check, check. And you'll also want to bring up the volume here. Check, check, check. And then to hear it out here, because we're going through mix A here, we're going to want to select mix A. Check, check, check. Testing 1, 2, 3. Check, check, check. And we have audio in the studio. I'm going to turn that down, dim and cut it because we don't need it up. If you wanted to actually EQ this, you could check, check, check. You can come through here and set your EQs in this section here. You also have some compressors, you have a gate in here, and you also have to activate all this. You also have some outputs to some effects here. And then in Pro Tools, you can actually bus it out to the different buses, whether you're doing it for monitors or you're doing it for routing it through other equipment in here. So hopefully that gets you into what you're looking for a basic studio setup. Most of the brains of this operation are going to happen here in this patch panel. Just knowing what goes to where and how it's all routed through. But basically, if you can get one microphone to go in from something as simple as this, you can do anything else in this studio. And it's just a signal chain following and stuff like that. On this cart right here, we have some preamps. We have a Felix, which also looks like it's a preamp. It's a 2 preamp on that one. We have an ADL, and then we have some 737s down at the bottom, which are also preamps. On this one, we've got some more preamps or effects processors. We have a Manley ELOP. We have a Manley stereo limiter / compressor. Let's see, what else do we have? We have a Danke 90 USA, which is a compressor. We have a Dahmer, which is also a compressor, and it's a vacuum tube compressor. And then out here we have a MIDI controller. We have a Tascam or a TC Electronics, which also works as that's an effects machine. We also have another TC AICAIE, which is there. We have a DVD player. We have a CD player / burner, and I think that is it for in here. We have the 11 rack. Most of this stuff, I mean, honestly, isn't necessary to get audio through. We have microphone inputs here, and most of these have tie lines that you can run stuff through. You also have Ethernet, which can be used. This one is used for the queue. This one can be used for video. You also have a video Cat 5, and then you've got a speaker 4, which allows routing for higher voltage through stuff. We've got another patch panel back here, and this is microphone inputs 1 through 16, and then you've got M49 through stuff. All of this stuff is pretty straightforward on the routing. It's just understanding where it goes. So you have MIDIs in and out here. You have another speaker 1. You've got tie lines, you've got video tie lines, you've got a Q tie line, you've got other Ethernet in there depending on what your use is, whether it's video or network or whatnot. We've got a drum setup, we've got a bass and a guitar. Bass and guitar. We've got an extra stand just in case. We've got a keys, a chord keyboard, and then we've got 3 amplifiers. We've got the isolation booth here, which mostly stores our music stands. We've got another patch panel here, and we've got some other music stands. You've got light controls in here. Set the ambiance for the artist. We can turn these off. Don't need those on. And then we've also got a mic closet here. And another panel there. So we keep most of our microphone stands in here, so they're out of the way. If we had more room, we could stick more stuff in it, but that's what we have. So that was the studio. Hopefully went over a general how to get everything running and what to do. Alright, so let's go over this area real quick, just the speakers and the routing. So in here we've got what this knob deals with. You have dim and cut, which will dim and cut the speakers, and then you've got your routing for EXTA, EXTB, which we don't get into. EXTA has the DAW in there, which is the digital side of the controller. You have the CD player, which is over there in the side cart. You have the DVD player, which is also over there in the side cart. You have the Macintosh, which is in the back room. And then you have mix, and you have sum. What sum allows you to do is to start adding in all of these. If you take some out, you can only select one or the other to actually listen to. You also have your headphone, what you have sending to the headphones. So if you want the monitor mix sending to it, or if you want the fullback A or fullback B, you can do that, or you can completely cut the headphone mix. And the headphones are actually on the board here. They should be underneath, which they are. Headphone port is right there. Alright, so back to this. You have your volume control for the knob or the dial you're looking for. You have the items you're selecting. So if you have like mini A, which is our atoms here, if you press that, you'll then have control over the mini controller, or the volume for those atoms. If you want to just do the Dyne audios, you can leave it open like it is right now, and then here's your volume for the Dyne audios, along with also your volume here for the Dyne audios. So if we take that back up to 80% and turn our speakers on, now our speakers are on at unity, 80% on this dial, and then now we have control over our volume here. We can dim and cut those. That just cuts the audio here of what's actually being sent out. The volume is still up over here. Your monitor source is what you want to listen to. So you can also do the same thing here where you have external A or mix A. If you do stereo mix, it's the same thing as mix A, just not necessary though. Your monitor mode, you can listen to it in solo. You can solo clear, which will clear out all of your solos. So if you have these soloed here, you should be able to solo clear. Yeah, so that'll clear it out. You have the left one out of phase. You have stereo, or you have mono, depending on what you're listening to. In this section, we have the ability to go from line or mic. So if we select our channels again here, and we go and we want to set it to mic, you can set them all into mic, or you can set them to line. If you want to add 48 volts, which is phantom power, you can add that in there too. You can also do an input flip, not necessary though. Line, we have phantom power back off, and if you want to deselect all of those, you press the two buttons there. I think that is the gist of this. The other thing we have too, so if you want to play back or listen to the fader for mix 1, one more thing. So if we do select all, and you want to select mix A here, which will then assign mix A to all of those channels. I think that is it for this section. We'll dim and cut, turn everything off, close that out. That's there. We'll bring this fader back down, disable that, and everything's zeroed out. Turn these guys off and volume all the way down, and then that should bring us back to running mode. Make sure the analog side is turned off too with that button, and I think that is all.